Hello and welcome to ANC Decides, the show that gives you up-to-the-minute reports, commentary and analysis building up to the ANC's December elective conference. I'm your host, Mfundo Mabalani. Let's take a look at your headlines. KZN provincial nomination results adjusted after discrepancies were flagged by PGC delegates. Nkosazana Dlamini Zuma's nominations adjusted to 454 and Cyril Ramaphosa's adjusted to 191. Limpopo chairperson Stanley Mathabata says Ramaphosa's victory is a foregone conclusion. Mathabata says he doesn't take the dissenting ANC Youth League in the province seriously. And Free State ANC leadership gears up for the long overdue provincial elective conference this coming weekend. Some leaders promise there won't be a purge of ANC members who have opposing views. The branch nominations for all provinces are out, and now the hotly contested ANC succession race is down to a numbers game. KwaZulu-Natal had its nomination numbers adjusted after delegates flagged some discrepancies. Nkosazana Dlamini Zuma's nominations were adjusted up by 21, reaching 454. Ramaphosa's nominations were adjusted down by 2, reaching or at least bringing him to 191. Nationally, Ramaphosa is now the official frontrunner, leading with approximately 500 nominations, but other ANC structures' votes can still swing the numbers either way. It now remains to be seen how the ANC will manage the close contest.
After the presentation last night, we had a session with the regional secretaries, whereupon we revisited the nomination consolidation that we had per region and went through literally every single concern that every regional secretary raised. And I must say, out of the exercise, there were 2 areas of concern that were raised by particularly 2 regions, mainly Moses Mabhida and Abatulusi, which sort of altered the figures slightly, and we will reflight the outcome of the nomination process.
When you reduce numbers by 20, by 30, and remember we moved from 433 to 457. That's a huge number. It's a huge discrepancy, and we are not happy even with that amount, because we do believe that the Election Commission has not done what they were supposed to do correctly. So we are quite unhappy about the process and the way it's being handled, and we hope that the National Executive Committee is going to attend this matter and deal with it. By the way, the fact that we've been able to pick this up, or we're able to pick this up yesterday, gives an indication that there's a possibility that in other provinces similar things might have happened and no one was able to pick it up. So we are worried. What is more worrying is that the same election commission that is going to be running this process is going to be running our elections.
And everybody is watching this conference. Those who wish us well are praying and are wishing that we have a successful, peaceful, dignified, united conference. Of course, those who don't wish us well say the opposite. But let us not play into their hands. What I want to stress is that the ANC must win, must remain united, because it has a task to make the lives of our people better. Not us individuals, it's the ANC.
What is important is to ensure that the will of branches is reflected as it is. That finally we endorse what came from branches is then correct. And I think, comrades, we must not take this issue out of context and exaggerate it.
We now cross over to our reporter Nomusa Pungula out in KZN. Nomusa, warm welcome to you. Now, we started the day with the adjustments announcement. The province maintains, though, that it's a huge discrepancy, but broadly, these figures are negligible. They don't really change the overall picture. Ramaphosa seems to be in the lead. But it seems that Chair Sihlezi Galala there maintains that NDZ will emerge victorious.
Well, good evening, Mfundo, and good evening to our viewers. Mfundo, what the chairperson was saying is he was actually reiterating what the secretary has been saying since day one of the conference. The fact that one has a lot, or one has majority of the nomination from branches. However, that does not necessarily mean that he or she will also lead when it comes to voting, because at the end of the day, not all branches, or branches do not have the same number of delegates. So it depends on how many delegates are allocated for each branch as per the quota that was determined by the national office. The secretary also said that it is important to note that he even made an example of 10 branches having qualified to each bring one delegate, but at the other hand, you find that there are other 2 branches that qualify to bring 6 branches each. So now it means that people should not look only at the matter, or on the issue of the number of nominations that each candidate received, but rather the number of delegates that are going to be partaking at the conference. He also mentioned that now the chairperson, that it is important that ANC members go to the conference united, particularly the KZN delegates that have been described by the media to be so divided. He even made an example that he was reading an article the other day that said that KZN is divided in half, which is something that he says that it is not a true reflection of what is happening in the province. He also mentioned that the African National Congress did not liberate South Africa for the media, but it liberated South Africa for the masses. So therefore the will of the branches must happen at the conference. They are the ones that are going to take the decision as to who exactly they want to lead the African National Congress. But Mfundo, it was a very lively conference to say, or council rather. We saw a lot of deliberations taking place, as much as they were closed session, but the feedback that we were getting was that they were very fruitful deliberations, that meaning that they did not only focus on who they are nominating, but also they did manage to discuss some of the policy proposals that are put in place by the ANC, and they have managed to consolidate their stance on all these policy proposals that have been proposed by the ANC. So come the December conference, they will be participating fruitfully, they will be participating fully, making sure that their voice is heard. But also highlight of the conference was when Dr. Nkosazana Dlamini Zuma walked in, and the delegates were very cheerful, singing songs that were in support of her, showing her how much support that they are going to give her come December conference. So it was a very lively conference as well, very united. We also saw that it was not a festival of chairs.
No, Musa, thank you very much for that update. Now today in studio we're joined by political analyst Papano Pasha, as well as Professor Andre Duvenaga via Skype. Panel, welcome to the both of you.
Thank you.
Now perhaps to start with you, Papano, listening there to Nomusa. She raises that argument that perhaps many shouldn't be celebrating already because the number of delegates that will be going to the conference is also an important factor. But then one would argue that this then would benefit both sides. That if Sihle Zikalala says the Ramaphosa camp should not be celebrating now because we must then discuss the number of delegates, but it could also benefit him that maybe out of the 1,862 that they're sending, that perhaps there's also more delegates that will be going in terms of those that nominated him.
No, thank you. Look, I think the media in particular has mainly been focusing on the branch nominations rather than the delegation itself. Take KZN, for example. You have 3 of the biggest regions there, being your Moses Mabhida, eThekwini region, and Musa Dladla. And if you take eThekwini, for example, Ward 1, it will be bringing more than 7 delegates. Also take into consideration that in eThekwini, there's no single branch that nominated Cyril Ramaphosa, meaning that if you look at the delegation itself and the nomination, the entire region, as big as it is, will be coming with all the numbers that will go for Ramaphosa. And take Gauteng, for example, as well. You would have branches which nominated Cyril Ramaphosa, but take Sidibeng. Sidibeng, you have branches which actually nominated in relation to delegates, delegates who support Nkosazana Zuma. So the branch will be decided by delegates. So it's a close race, but also take into consideration that the president himself, and this is not an issue that many have actually looked at, is actually the kingmaker more than anyone else.
The president of the country?
Yeah, the president of the country.
Okay.
He will be making his last speech as the president of the ANC. And if you have observed through the past 5 years, every time he goes and addresses either your provincial general councils or your regional general councils, even in provinces where, you know, there's no harmony or where it is perceived that they are anti-president, he has been welcomed by ordinary branch members.
But how will he be a kingmaker in this respect?
No, he's very influential. Make no mistake. If you look at the provinces themselves and the regions which are rallying behind Nkosazana Dlamini Zuma, they are also in support of the president. Even those who support Cyril Ramaphosa, by the way. Make no mistake, the president is highly influential in the ANC. I mean, look at the motion of no confidence, for example. How many PGCs which went on to speak on the issue of his recalling actually pronounced? They didn't. And Gauteng, which is an extraordinary factor in all of this, did not even pronounce in relation to recalling him. So the president is very influential.
Now, Professor, perhaps just to rope in Professor Andre Duvenaka. Professor, welcome to you. Now, what Papano is saying here, she mentions that the president could also be influential. But this then brings us to the fundamental flaw or issue that some have, where we have branches that go on to publicize their preference. And then they send what we should actually be calling a messenger. The person that goes to the conference is in fact a messenger. But what they do is they're given the option to then voice or convey this message privately in the form of a secret ballot. Is that okay? Should they not have the electoral reforms that people are calling for to say one member, one vote?
I think we have now seen the nomination process going its way, and it's clear that the Ramaphosa group is ahead, although we must argue that the Youth League, the Women League and the Veterans and the PECs and the NECs should still be accommodated. So that picture can change. But the question you are asking is about the voting process.
Yes.
And it is clear to me that the voting process can be a difficult one. I am in support of a secret ballot, but I'm very much concerned about influences in terms of vote rigging, but also in terms of buying people over that can influence the process.
So, Professor, if you and
we need a clean and fair election, and hopefully the administrators of the election can ensure that this is going to be a free and fair process. You are quite right that the nominators are people that are carrying messages. But at the end of the day, they are also there elected with a mandate, but also to operate in terms of their conscience. You cannot get an electoral system that is 100% perfect under all circumstances. And that is also the case with regard to the ANC.
No, certainly no electoral system can be perfect, but one would think a 105-year-old organization would try to have something that is more modern as opposed to the backward one here, where we could see manipulation. But nevertheless, let's go on to the Free State. Now, the Free State top brass is looking forward to holding a successful provincial elective conference amid questions about the legitimacy of the current PC. Kenny Mapanga filed this report for us.
The ANC in the Free State is confident that no faction or threat of court action will affect the results of the long-overdue provincial elective conference.
It would not be in the interest of any individual or factional grouping to want to disturb the provincial conference of the ANC from sitting. Because already there was a court order that ordered the provincial conference to have set last week, but because of another court ruling, we have to wait for the rerunning of the 29 branch general meetings, which is going to happen this week. But after that, the provincial conference of the ANC will sit and new leadership will be elected.
Some leaders vow not to purge members with opposing views because the party is a democratic organization that they too can call home.
Remember, in the ANC that we are leading, it's a democratic organization. If you check its character, it's non-racial, non-sexist, democratic, and is biased towards the poor. Now, if you've got pockets of people that are having different views, it doesn't necessarily mean that we're going to purge them.
Meanwhile, ANC Free State Deputy Chairperson Thabo Manyoni appealed for fair processes within the party, adding that he would only comment further after attending the closed PEC meeting.
The Free State PEC has been challenged by its detractors as being illegitimate after its mandate expired 6 months ago. However, ANC Secretary General Gwede Mantashe says the PEC is legitimate. The jury is now out on whether Thabo Manyoni's camp will emerge victorious at the next provincial elective conference. Kani Mapanga, ANN7, Bloemfontein.
We'll now cross over to our reporter Kenny Mapanga out in the Free State. Kenny, a warm welcome to you. Now talk us through perhaps the province's state of readiness today ahead of that elective conference, and perhaps if you've caught sight of Thabo Manyoni or even had a one-on-one with him.
Good afternoon to you, Mfundo, and the viewers at home, coming to you live from the ANC Free State headquarters in Bloemfontein. Now, it appears that the current PEC is having a meeting. They started the meeting at about 2 p.m. and it's currently underway. Now, I can confirm that Thabo Manyoni is actually here. This is the first appearance that he's made following the PGC that he did not attend, and it's reported across the media that he referred to it, as a sham, Mfundo. And he's one of the people in the ANC Free State that have opposing views. Now, just to give me a second to tell you a bit about the issues that most probably will be discussed. Now, on top of the agenda will definitely be the looming threat of court action on the ANC Free State, as well as the issue of the 29 outstanding BGMs. Now, with the looming court threat action, remember the BGC was a surprise for some disgruntled members of the ANC Free State, and they were reporting it as a sham. Now, it appears that with the BGMs, the status of that right now is that we're not sure as to which branches are now ready to pronounce their position.
No, Kenny, thank you very much for that update. Papano, your take, interesting developments in the Free State. I mean, we know what happened last week, the so-called surprised PGC that they had. Thabo Manyoni was not present, and now today at the PEC he is present. Number of guesses of what's happening inside there.
Yeah, look, I think before I even respond, there's one thing that I think we should clarify. When branches nominate delegates, they don't necessarily nominate delegate who supports a particular candidate. They just support a candidate who's going to go to conference and speak the views of the branch, including the policies. Now, in relation to the Free State, I think what's happening in the Free State, it's quite saddening. The fact that, the province itself has been taken to court numerous times based on discrepancies, But I think one of the things that one should actually zoom into is the fact that it was the Thabo Manyoni faction that actually took the PEC itself to court, mainly because they said that its term of office has come to an end and it must go to the provincial conference. Now the PEC has indicated that it would go to province, and then there are these court cases. I think this week we are waiting to see the branches, the 29 or 27 branches that are supposed to hold their BGMs, and that will give an indication of what would happen. But, from where I'm sitting, Ace Magashula, if he does contest as the chairperson, he will be re-elected. Because what we have observed is that, branches of the ANC in the Free State seem to have hope, in their chairperson.
Now, Papano, I think you were quite interested or wanted to express more on the part about the electoral reforms. You're saying that this person that is then elected to go and express the views of the branch, you're saying that this person, if some were to perhaps see them or view them as a messenger, that they shouldn't necessarily be going to vote in private because they must go and express the views of the branches? I still just want to get your take. What exactly is your position there?
Look, the ANC calls itself, a university of ideas. What is surely going to happen at conference is that delegates themselves, they are going to be confronted, they are going to be engaged, and their views, because...
might change from the views or at least the message that they were given back home.
Yes, because remember, branches don't...
Let's just try and rope in Professor Andre Duvenagane. Professor, your take on Papano's rationale there? That they still are open to be persuaded?
Well, my take on it is it's a mix of both worlds. In a way, you are carrying a mandate from your branch towards the respective levels of structure in the organization, but at the same time, you are also an individual who can make choices. And basically, part of your mandate in a democracy is supposed to act in accordance with your conscience. So you should vote for a person that you believe can do the job up there. You cannot give them a very strict final mandate because they can act in a situation there where they need to formulate their own view. So it's a mix of two. It's not only a messenger, it's also a responsible Democrat.
But what if I was a member of the ANC and said I'd love to express my own view, to say I don't want out of 100 that we are represented by one. I'd like to also have that opportunity to mark that X for my preferred candidate. Would that not be the time for at least that all members of the ANC vote for their preferred candidates?
Well, I think definitely what you are saying is part of a democratic process. But again, I'm mentioning to you that there's no final, perfect electoral process. Always at the end of the day, it's about values, it's about norms, it's about ethics. And that you cannot manage, unfortunately.
No, noted, Professor. Now, my colleague Natasha Piri earlier spoke to ANC Limpopo chairperson Stanley Matabata. Here are his reflections of the PGC.
You mentioned various regions, lots of regions are voting in favor of Cyril Ramaphosa, but the Mopani region seems to be a stronghold for Nkosazana Dlamini.
No, but I mean, what are the figures saying?
CR is taking
yes, it's taken
of that region.
Yes, even in that region, also CR is leading.
So the branches have spoken.
Yeah, the branches have spoken.
Okay.
You don't have in Limpopo a stronghold of comrade the NDZ. No, you don't have. And I don't think the people of Limpopo hate Nkosazana. We love comrade Nkosazana. Oh, we love her. But we are saying this is not the opportunity. It's time. It's the question of time and space. It's not the opportune time for comrade Nkosazana to take over now.
Okay. Mpumalanga, the PGC was very interesting. As you heard, they voted for unity.
Who is unity,
yes,
by the way?
I think it is. Your reaction, who do you think unity is?
Well, I don't know. I can't talk for Comrade Didi. I can't talk for him. I can't talk for the people of Mpumalanga because I lead Limpopo. Yes, but maybe they do have a point. I don't know what point do they have. But my initial, should I say, my initial understanding, without basis, of course, is that perhaps what they are saying is that let's get something that will unite the African nations. And my take on that is that anything that is not following this principle, this practice that I was telling you about, is divisive. Like Mandela said, once you get the presidency of African National Congress being contested, you must know that the ANC is divided. That is why we had to manage this process. So anything that is not Cyril Ramaphosa, because it's a person, that is not the deputy president of the ANC currently, the sitting deputy president of the ANC currently taking over, that will be divisive. So if you vote unity, it means you must vote that process.
talking about divisions and factionalism, I mean, how do we get rid of that?
The factions.
Yes, and you warned against slates. You also warned against, people breaking away from the party. But unfortunately, we've also seen Umakosi Khoza starting her own party recently. So
I don't remember who's this philosopher. Long ago, ages. I don't know whether it's Kautsky or whoever. I don't remember. I'm talking under correction when I say the name there. Who was it? But this philosopher said, you can never have a strong organization that does not have cabals, factions. Factions, there's no problems, according to him, with factions. But these factions, the problem with factions is if they are reactionary and counter-revolutionary. When they are in the process, if there is a faction that is paging others, when it is faction that is intending to unite the movement, as you would remember that there was something called inner party democracy. If you are coming from outside, you would say, no, but in fact this is factionalism, but it's democratic centralism. So you'll always have them, but the issue is how do you manage them? Do you manage them in the interest of the good of the unity of the organization, or are you using them to divide the organization?
Well, that concludes our interview with the ANC chairperson and premier of the province, Ntate Stan Mathabatha, who remains very resolute that Deputy President Cyril Ramaphosa should take over as the ANC's next president, as per the party's tradition. For ANN7, Natasha Perry, Polokwane.
A very interesting interview there with the chair in Limpopo, Stanley Mathabatha, saying that anything that is not in support of the sitting deputy president would be considered divisive. He also goes on to say no strong organization would not have factions. A very interesting one. I wish we also had him in studio, or at least could open this conversation further to find out from our guest. But unfortunately, that's where we ended today.